Being your authentic and true self. And as I mentioned, the book of the month, we have some in the bookstore still, is Atlas of the Heart. Now, normally when we think about an atlas, we might think about a visual map. But this book is not per se about a visual map of our physical heart, but an emotional map of our feeling heart. I read Brene Brown's introduction. Raised in a family where we didn't speak much about feelings. I knew happy, sad, and mad. I was one of those people in the 80s who had those posters of all the faces that were smiley faces and then angry faces and disappointing faces and all the different, so that I could expand my vocabulary on feelings. Well, I read her introduction and I said, I needed this book 40 years ago. Just reading the introduction, a very profound point about if you don't have the language or the vocabulary to be aware of what's going on with you, then you're missing the message that your feelings are sharing with you. And so it's important for us to get to know the vocabulary of our heart, to go deeper and understand what is the message that I need to hear here to be more of my authentic self. So you might be struggling now, or you might have been struggling in the past to really know those feelings, to allow them to lead you to a more vulnerable and honest place of who you are, again, not who others think you should be. This book will help guide you to feelings that you knew but couldn't quite put language to, and vice versa, maybe feelings you didn't even know existed. Now, so the class is very rich. I've already heard from several folks. So again, I invite you to join the class on Wednesday night. And because I'm filling in for Christine today, my lesson on October 29th is about Atlas of the Heart, so I'll go deeper on that. But since I'm stepping in for Reverend Christine today, I decided to go with another Brene Brown book. Daring Greatly. Anybody read this book? Okay, about 5 of you. This book, called Daring Greatly, has a byline that says, "How the courage to be vulnerable transforms the way we live, love, parent, and lead." I'd change that slightly for today and say, how the courage to be vulnerable and be our authentic self transforms the way we live, love, and show up in the world. So, of course, I always like to ask questions. So take a moment in silence to think about this question. Do you need courage to be authentically you? Do you need courage to be authentically you? If yes, answer the question why. If not, ask the question why not. I don't know if we have the microphones in the room turned on, so I'll definitely repeat what people say, but let me open it up and say, why or why not do you need the courage to be authentically you? Yes, John.
I'm hoping it go both ways, but it's like courage for me is co, which means more than one person, and rage, which I guess is anger. So I was thinking, you don't really need courage because that's other people saying that's what you need to be yourself. So you just need to do it or something and not look at other people.
Yes, in other words, it goes both ways. You see that if you're authentically being you, then you're authentically being you. But you were also mentioning that other people, if you're worried about what other people are thinking or getting an impression about you, then you do need courage. Sharon?
As Brene Brown writes in her book, the word courage comes from the French word coeur, which is heart.
Coeur.
And so having heart. And for me, answering the question, yes, it takes courage to connect with my own heart when I am in the face of the experience with others that is demonstrating their ideas about what's important to them, and I have a different idea.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. How do I summarize that? I got lost even in the second. I loved that, first of all, courage comes from the French word coeur, which means heart, so that's beautiful. And then the second is, I love how you said, and that's where I immediately went with you on, it takes courage even to connect with my own heart. Because what I may see there, I may like or not like, which means being vulnerable and being human and willing to open to what's really going on here. Beautiful. Yes, Kat.
It takes courage to do something that's hard to do. And anything that's new that we don't normally do is new and hard. So we do have to work at it. But the more you work at it, the easier it gets.
It takes courage to do things you haven't done before or to do things that are hard. Yes.
I think it's the intent. It all starts with your intentions.
Courage starts with your intentions, or to be authentically who you are starts with your intentions.
Because I have intent to lose weight, or I have intentions not to.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Yep. Anybody else? Yes.
Courage to move through our own fears and created obstacles.
Courage to move through our own fears. And I like how you said our own obstacles, religious science practitioner. Our own obstacles based on what we have thought or believed, and realizing that what is possible when we connect with a higher truth and a higher knowing.
I was going to say it's all uphill.
It's all uphill.
There'd be no rest courage.
Climb every mountain and practice courage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
All my life.
All your life practicing courage. Beautiful. That's a spiritual practice. So sometimes it's not comfortable to be you. You all know my story as far as in the 80s coming out as being gay. It was not comfortable coming out. But I needed to authentically be me. And I know that I have heard, particularly those of you that were at Asilamar and heard Reverend Elijah say, specifically about needing to come out for their sanity, needing to be who they truly were in order to be sane. Think about that for a second. Society, friends, family who have different ideas of what gay means. And I remember in the 80s thinking to myself, everybody thinks that being gay is about sex because that's the taboo subject. But come on, a lifetime relationship is about, well, relationship and the connection, the attraction. So why then? Well, because then we can put judgment and criticism on, that's not me, so that's not right. And I am very compassionate and empathetic for the transgender humanity because it's not safe or comfortable to come out in many places to share their authentic self. And for any of you that don't align with typical stereotypes, it can be uncomfortable. And as a child, which now becomes maybe subconscious to you, you may have been silenced or redirected. You know, my mom wanted a boy, she got a girl. Then she wanted a prissy girl, she got a tomboy. So, when we go shopping for clothes, she's like, "You're not even looking at the rack." And I'm like, "That's because that rack is not me." Of course, she liked to shop. So I used to tell my sister, who unfortunately passed when she was 39, good thing she came along because she could be the prissy girl my mom wanted. Meanwhile, I was climbing trees and riding bikes and being my authentic self. And it's sort of interesting to think about when you're smaller, you don't know any different but to be your authentic self. What you loved, what you enjoyed, what you explored, what you were curious about. But if we're listening to things from the outside trying to tell us what we should or should not think about, talk about, feel about, then it takes courage. And that means being vulnerable. The real power of you is in your authenticity, in knowing and expressing who you truly are. Not what you think you should do because others might think differently about you. Your power lies in connecting with your heart, with who you truly are, and being authentic to that. Ernest Holmes said, practically the whole human race is hypnotized, or also known as race consciousness, because it thinks what somebody else told it to think. And so this is an invitation to you to question, who am I truly? Ironically, Brené Brown says we can become stronger when we embrace our vulnerability. Because what would society say when you're vulnerable? Weak. And I forgot to say that there's a leadership team that I am on with 12 others, and we are reading this book together and connecting with each other. And in the book, it speaks about men and women, and I said, well, again, I don't typically like to be stereotyped, and hence I can be both of those. However, let me ask the men in the room, do you think people want you to be vulnerable? Does society want you to cast vulnerability? Typically, stereotypically, men are supposed to be strong. Grr. Problem solvers, that's right. That's right. Why? Why have we done that? When we shut ourselves off from being vulnerable, we're distancing ourselves from experiences that bring purpose and meaning to life.
I think we did it because hierarchy is so much simpler than equality and mutual respect.
Hierarchy is easier.
Molds are easier than authenticity. You have one mold and everybody fits
Good.
in their place. Then
When you're told what to do and everybody's like, fine, now I know what to do. Yeah. And we learned yesterday in the practitioners retreat, there's something that's called spiral dynamics, and just a quick essence of that is that there are those that believe in the tribalism. One person's in charge and I just do what you say. And then there are aspects of, I want to be the best me that I can be, whoever that authentically is. And then as you can, and it's not necessarily stages, we are all of these in the spirodynamics. And another level or stage is, I want to know how I can serve the world.
my place in the family of things.
My place in the family of things. Yeah, very good, Mary Oliver. So, if we can't be vulnerable, then we may not be able to find our true self. I don't want to see that weakness. I don't want to see that pain. I don't want to see that dark side of me. But there's a message there. And if we're willing to follow that message, it will lead us to our true self. Now, that can be scary, and it certainly takes practice to be courageous and practice to be vulnerable. It's not always about believing what thoughts just stroll through our mind. Many of you have heard the saying, and I said it during the meditation, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And the French philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin was a French philosopher, but I didn't know this about him because I've always loved his quotes. He was also a priest and a scientist. Oh, wow. No wonder I like his quotes. Chardin, it's D-I-N, Chardin.
It's French, so Chardin.
Chardin. Okay, I'm going to learn French. So we want to know ourselves as something more than the physicalness of our humanness, more than our habits, more than our thoughts. We want to discover the depth of ourselves, to discover the spirit of who we are. And that means daring greatly. That means learning to choose courage over comfort. Brené Brown also says, I think the people who wade into discomfort and vulnerability and tell the truth about their stories are the real, badasses in this world. True Brené Brown, right? That's part of what we love about her, I think. She's very raw. And she said, this is especially true of people who rumble with failure. These are people who choose courage over comfort, accountability over blame, and are able to embed key learnings from failures into their life to help make the net stronger. Courage. Choosing courage over comfort. Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the determination to act despite fear's presence, guided by a stronger sense of purpose and a commitment to achieving a higher good. Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear, like being your authentic self. Did you know that there are 6 types of courage? Physical courage, we all know, feeling the fear, choosing to act, bravery, developing physical strength. Maybe it's physical courage to walk 6 miles. And then there's emotional courage, following the heart, being open to feeling the spectrum of emotions, both pleasant and unpleasant, without attachment. There's also intellectual courage, expanding our horizons, letting go of the familiar, willingness to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn with an open and flexible mind. Social courage. Anybody have social anxiety? I know that became profound, especially post-COVID. To be yourself in the face of adversity involves the risk of involves the risk of social, perhaps embarrassment or exclusion, unpopularity or rejection. But social courage also involves leadership. Moral courage, standing up for what is right, doing the right thing even when it is uncomfortable or unpopular. And spiritual courage, facing the pain with dignity and faith. It helps us live with purpose and meaning through a heart-centered approach towards all life and oneself. So, 6 different dimensions to build courage. And one way to build and practice vulnerability, courage to be yourself, courage to be authentic, is to be in a community that supports you, like CSL Chico and the class Atlas of the Heart. Let me ask you, what is community? Oneness?
Diversity of whatever degree.
Yes, you will have diversity in community and at the same time some commonality, right? Your neighborhood community, your spiritual community, your friends community, your work community. Yeah, Alan.
In Hawaii, we call it ohana.
Ohana.
Family.
In Hawaii, family. Yes. Yes. How'd you know I was going there soon?
I do.
You know.
Acceptance for difference and curiosity to understand.
I love that. The community acceptance for difference. And what was the last?
Curiosity.
And curiosity.
To understand one another.
Curiosity to get to understanding one another, being open to that. Yeah.
Then it takes less and less courage to communicate.
Because you know that you're supported. Yes, to be who you are is what we support. Yeah. And I would say we are a a community of spiritual seekers wanting to learn the essence of us that's beyond the physical. Not that we don't want to learn the physical, we want that too, but beyond the physical. And so Desjardins, something like that, already forgot it, says there is almost a sensual longing for communion with others who have a large vision. There is almost a sensual longing for communion with others who have a large vision. The immense fulfillment of a friendship between those engaged in furthering the evolution of consciousness has a quality impossible to describe. But there's a feeling to it, right? A feeling that you know. When we feel the moment directly through our body, who we are, not as thought, not as ego, not as a person, but understanding the higher essence of who we are, then the small little ego, individual me agendas fade, and we are just in the now. Not separate from life, not separate from our spirit, not separate from true nature, but we merge with the oneness. That's part of the reason for meditation. Get out of the head, move into the space, not physical space, but space that allows for that greater vision and expansion of our truth. Love, light, peace, power, beauty, joy. Ernest Holmes says, we have within us a power that is greater than anything we shall ever contact in the outer, and a power within us that can overcome every obstacle in our life and set us safe, satisfied, and at peace, healed and prosperous, in a new light and in a new life. Let the inner ear listen to the voice of truth that is always speaking. And I will add, authentically through you. We are all on a journey of self-discovery. I dare you to find and be your authentic self. That means being courageous and daring greatly to find the powerful you. Namaste. So I found a song by another new thought singer-songwriter. Her name is Amy Bishop, and the song is called Powerful Me.